Okay, guys, Assalamu alaikum. How are you? I'm your tutor, Israr Ahmad, a tutor for IT, and today our class is about introduction to Linux. This is the first class about in Linux track. In this class, we are going to overview the concept you have to understand for actually start using Linux. So in this class we are not going to discuss terminal consoles, GUIs, commands. So we just here we just introduce the Linux. So I'm going to explain you all of things that have to you before to start the Linux. Okay, Linux has a lot of benefits and a lot of good things. So today class about what Linux is and where Linux came from and all of the fundamental concepts you have to understand before actually you start building a server and maintaining your own Linux system. So come to start introduction to Linux. So the first thing, an introduction to Linux is where the Linux is came from and what is basically Linux. So first thing is to Linux is operating system. Linux is operating system, and for all of you who don't know what is operating system, and for all of you the thing you do but forgot what is operating system. So basically the operating system is the software. It is a software layer that is between the hardware and the software that you actually use to get some productive. Again, I am repeating the simple introduction of operating system. Basically the operating system is a software reside between the hardware and the software. They tell the hardware what to do, okay, or we can say that actually used to get some product thing. So the operating system is the one who allows software to talk with hardware to perform something. For example, to store information in hard drive, to send print job to printer, etc. In Windows environment, we can say when you are in Windows environments where you install a Windows operating system and you have hardware and Windows operating system, and another thing is you have installed Microsoft Office that is on the top of the operating system. So this Windows communicate between the hardware and that application software that is Microsoft Office. So well, Linux do the same thing. Linux is operating system that access the media between the hardware and the software. Okay, this is the main layer between software and hardware, which tells the hardware how to perform. The main thing that you will learn that software that you run in Windows operating system like Adobe, Photoshop, that is desktop application like Microsoft Office, are not actually run in Linux operating system. Then what is Linux? Linux is operating system, but actually Linux actually runs servers like Apache web server, database servers, virtualization servers. So basically the first thing is Linux is operating system, and operating system resides between the software and the hardware, allow the software to talk hardware. Okay, now the question is where the Linux came from. Basically Linux operating system is created in between 1991 in 1994 by the guy name was Linus Torvalds. Linus Torvalds to create a new free operating system kernel. He performed some job on his project. During that project he created this operating system. But there is one confusion, that is a big confusion. The big thing is Linux is because as there is the UX at the end of the Linux, and most of the command that we use in Linux look like a Unix. So people think that the Linux is a type of Unix, and that is not a case. Unix is another type of operating system. Linux is its own type of operating system, and Unix is another type of operating system. These guys, the Linus create a Linux entire from the ground of Unix system. But there is a lot of confusion. People think that the Linux is a type of Unix, but this is not totally the case. The reason was that he want to create an open source operating system for the people to use. So back in before 1994, Linux is open source for the most. Unix is the open source for the most part of but of the world. But back in 1990, Unix was not open source. Means if someone want to use Unix, he had to pay somebody, just like Microsoft Windows, as you always pay to Microsoft. But one thing I want to explain you that open source does not mean that you will pay always. We will discuss open source later. Okay, we are not going to in detail in open source. What is open source? But here, and before 1990, Unix was not an open source software operating system. So this guy Linus, who is a computer scientist and engineer, he went to create operating system that is completely free. So the big thing is here again. The big thing is Linux is operating system. This operating system is look different from the Windows. It look different from the Mac, but it is an operating system. Okay, as I told you, Linux is created an operating system that is completely open source, that allows everybody in the world, every computer scientist, every guy related to IT, to start plan to change this operating system. Okay. So Linus created the original Linux, and then he decided to give it to the rest of the world, and the people in different part of the world decided to create another version of Linux. Like people in China create their own version of Linux. People in Brazil create their own version of Linux. And this in turn creates something that is called a distri or a distribution. Okay, this is called a distribution. These are the various version of Linux. Now you may know what is distribution. I can give a best example of distribution. There are a lot of distribution in the world. About more than 54 distribution are normally available in the world of Linux. Like Red Hat, that is a version of Linux. Ubuntu Linux, that is another version of Linux. You may know the very every person that is related to IT or not, he know that there is a operating system called Google Android that have a little smartphones operating system that is also a version of Linux. So Google Android is also a version of Linux. So basically distribution are various version of Linux. Now when you go to decide what distribution to use, you are going to think about what you want. First you will think what you want to do with your computer by using Linux. So in Linux you must think before what you want to do on your computer before install the operating system. In case of Windows, you just install the Windows and then you can go do anything. Just install Windows, then configure the server later, etc. But in case of Linux, it is different. You will first think for what purpose I am using the Linux, then you will install that distribution of the Linux. With Linux, every distribution is built to do things differently. Okay, one thing about Linux is trusted Linux, as Linux is more secure server than Windows. No threat, no virus can get into the Linux easily. So when you want to install Linux, you then you will first think what you want to do with Linux. Okay, for example, I can give the example that if you want to surf web or some application that you just need to install on your operating system, like Microsoft, like text processor, etc., music players, etc., then you need to just install Ubuntu desktop. It is a distribution of Linux. If you want super secure computer, you might want trusted secure distribution Linux, like Red Hat or Ubuntu server. That are the distribution of Linux. If you want some with enterprise level support, so you can use Linux. In this case, you want know some call center out there that help if necessary. So in this case, you may decide to use Red Hat Linux, because every distribution does thing in its own way. Some distribution do thing good and some poorly. So you have to decide what you want to do with your computer before to install the Linux distribution. Okay guys, this is the end of our first lecture in Linux Tech. Inshallah we will come soon in the next class to discuss some other concept about Linux. Up to date, take care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.